Okay, so they are saying sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x. And they're wanting me to grab 70 degrees and plug it in for x. So we get sine squared of 70 degrees plus cosine squared of 70 degrees. And what does it equal? Well, we have a formula, right, on the formula sheet here. In fact, I called it the number one most important formula. Get rid of some of this chicken scratch here. The number one most important formula right there is sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. So notice they have an x and an x in that formula. What does that mean? Well, that means that sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x equals 1. Whenever we, in math and science, when we give a formula and we give an x, we're saying it's a variable. Variable. It can vary. It can be anything, but it must be the same number in both spots. Oops. It can be anything, but it must be the same number in both spots. It's a variable. So if you plug in 70 and 70, the answer is 1. If you plugged in 113 and 113, the answer would still be 1. That's what it means in math and science when they give you a formula with an x. If it's an x in two places, that means that can be any number as long as it's the same number in both places. If they wanted different numbers, they would have to say sine squared of x plus cosine squared of y. They'd have to use a different letter. But if they're using the same letter, x, in both spots, that means you plug in the very same number in both spots and it'll always equal 1. Now's a good time for me to say why. Why in the world would that always equal 1? It's actually really simple. I'll try to keep it really quick here. It's right off the unit circle. Where'd they come up with that formula? Right smack dab off the unit circle. Let me grab the unit circle. Where did my unit circle go? Sorry, I can't find my unit circle. Here, I'll just use this one. It's just got like a mark on it. I guess that's what I got to do. I don't have the other one. So there we go. Yeah. So here's an old unit circle. So yeah, so remember the unit circle? Anytime you go to any spot, this is called the unit circle. What does unit mean? Why do we call it unit? We mean 1. We mean radius 1. This circle has radius 1. That's what unit stands for. Unit stands for 1. So 1 circle, so which means the radius 1. So if you draw, remember this is cosine and sine, cosine, sine, cosine, sine, cosine, sine, cosine, sine, etc. as you go around. Well, that means it's over cosine up sine. Try that again. Over cosine. Let me change the color. Up sine. So the y value is sine of whatever angle. In this case, we're doing 30 degrees. So for an angle of 30 degrees, the x value is cosine of that angle, which is square root of 3 over 2. And the y value is sine of that angle, which is a half. It says right there. This is a right triangle, right? So in other words, what I'm saying is this is just normal coordinates. You guys remember coordinates back when you took algebra, right? Remember if they gave you like a coordinate system and they said, okay, this is the point over 3 up to, you know what that means? It's over 3 up to, you could go from the origin, you could go over 3 and up to. You can make a triangle there. Over 3 up to. That's what coordinates mean. X value, y value, over and up, right? Well, that's what they mean here too. When we say the x is cosine and the y is sine, we're saying over is cosine, up is sine of that angle you're at. So when you're at an angle like 30 degrees, and you're saying this point has an x and a y, cosine, sine, we mean over cosine, up, sine. Okay, so what? Well, that means we've got a little right triangle here, you see. And I know this hypotenuse is 1. Why? Because that's the radius. That goes from the middle of the circle to the edge. Now you might say, well, this is a radius here. Nope, doesn't make it all the way to the edge. If you went all the way to the edge, that'd be 1, but they stop right here. They go over only that far, up only that far. So this, though, is truly a radius. And this is a radius 1 circle. Any of these lines has a length of 1. These are all radial lines. They go halfway across the circle from the middle to the edge, which is always 1. All these are 1. Because why? Because the circle has a radius of 1. It's the unit circle, the radius 1 circle. Okay, so what? Well, so now we have a triangle. Over is the cosine, up is the sine, and the hypotenuse is 1. Well, remember a squared plus b squared equals c squared? Remember that? A squared plus b squared is c squared for any right triangle. The c is the hypotenuse, 1 squared. So we're saying cosine squared plus sine squared, right? Because over is cosine, up is sine. That's the a and the b. And 1 squared is 1. There it is. There's how they came up with sine squared plus cosine squared is 1 for any angle at 30 degrees, or if you did this whole triangle at 60 degrees, or any angle you want. The cosine squared plus the sine squared is gonna be 1 because it's just the hypotenuse of the right triangle, and the cosine is the x and the sine is the y, so it's the a and the b. So that's why they know sine squared plus cosine squared is always 1. It's from that for any angle. That's how they got that formula. And then from that, by the way, they got the other formulas. If you start with sine squared plus cosine squared is 1, and then you divide through, let's say, by cosine squared, watch what you get. What's sine squared over cosine squared? Tangent squared. What's cosine squared over cosine squared? 1. What's 1 over cosine squared? Remember, 1 over cosine is secant. This is secant squared. That's how they came up with the other big formula. 1 plus tangent squared is secant squared. They just took the original sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1 and divided through by cosine squared. So that's where all these formulas